What's up, YouTube? This is Hero 4 TV. So I had intended on absolutely destroying JD Vance based upon a headline that I read. And the headline that I read said, from multiple sources, JD Vance dismisses school shootings as, quote, just a fact of life. Like, I mean, it just happens. Like, it was like he was just the most callous asshole in political history. But that didn't sound right because I like, wait a minute, man. He cannot. There's no way in hell, even if he is a calculating, closet sociopath, he has to know that sounds horrible. He's too. Nobody's that bad of a politician that got that far. Where he at, right? So I looked and found, and I wanted to hear what he actually said. And this is another example of how increasingly the media, the media have always misquoted people, especially people who they don't like, for clicks, likes, views, whatever, revenue. But now it's getting to the point where they're outright almost lying now and getting away with it. I'm telling you, they need to change the laws so that the media is held more accountable for being false. Now, I'm not a JD Vance fan, okay? I'm not. I can't stand the dude. I think he's a phony. I think he has a problem with women. He's a weirdo. And I think that's an apropos title for him, right? There's something wrong with him. And I've said it. And I thought that the Republicans made a mistake. I was wrong. I thought he was a good pick on the surface, but as more and more stuff came out, no, he's not a good pick, in my opinion. But I have to say this. He was misquoted. And what he said actually makes sense and is true. The quotes that you're going to see is that he said school shootings, quote, are a fact of life. Like, it's dismissive. I mean, that's just the product of, if we live in a country with guns, that's just what's going to happen. That's not what he said. This is what he said.
First of all, what happened in Georgia is just an awful tragedy. And I know we've got a lot of parents and a lot of grandparents in this room. I mean, I cannot imagine, little kids so excited to go back to school. God love them. And they're at their first week back from the summer, and an absolute barbarian decides to open fire and take their lives and also a couple teachers. We gotta think about these people. If you're the praying type, and I know I am, we gotta hold them up in prayer. We gotta be hoping for the best for this incredible community, because no parent should have to deal with this. No child should have to deal with this. And yes, after holding these folks up in prayer and giving them our sympathies, because that's what people deserve in a time of tragedy, then we have to think about how to make this less common. Now look, the Kamala Harris answer to this is to take law-abiding American citizens' guns away from them. That is what Kamala Harris wants to do. But we have to ask ourselves, we actually have been able to run an experiment on this, because you've got some states with very strict gun laws, and you've got some states that don't have strict gun laws at all. And the states with strict gun laws, they have a lot of school shootings. And the states without strict gun laws, some of them have school shootings too. So clearly strict gun laws is not the thing that is going to solve this problem. What is going to solve this problem, and I really do believe this, is, look, I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. And we have got to bolster security at our schools so that a person who walks through the front door we've got to bolster security so that if a psycho wants to walk through the front door and kill a bunch of children, they're not able to. And again, as a parent, do I want my kids' school to have additional security? No, of course I don't. I don't want my kids to go to school in a place where they feel like you've got to have additional security, but that is increasingly the reality that we live in. And a bunch of my colleagues in the Senate, we actually worked on legislation that would give schools more resources to bolster their security, because if these psychos are going to have to go after our kids, we've got to be prepared for it. We don't have to like the reality that I'm Ellie Reed.
That was it. Now, I didn't have a problem with what he said. What was the problem with what he said? He didn't say anything wrong. And it's true. If you look at the statistics, the states that have the strictest gun laws, the intent is to bring down gun violence and shootings, but it actually increased. Why? Because the citizens are restricted from getting guns, but criminals are going to get their hands on guns. They're going to get their hands on guns. So there's something to that. Absolutely. As he said, sociopaths and psychopaths target soft targets. They target the weak. They target the easy get. The path of least resistance. That's what everybody does that wants to harm or hurt people, right? Schools. I'm sorry, things have changed. When I was going to school, that was the last thing on my mind. We didn't start seeing gun violence until my last year in school, which was my senior year, 1997-98. That's when we first started seeing this. And this is back when, if you heard about a school shooting, it was national news. It was the talk of the news blogosphere. We didn't really have that term back then. But that was the talk of the town back then. Then Columbine happened. That rocked the nation. Now these things happen and we become so desensitized because it happens so frequently. We live in a chaotic normalcy or normality, whatever term how you want to pronounce that. This isn't normal. It's not normal for us to be in such a violent society. I put this picture up here for a reason, because it shows the hypocrisy of the Republican Party. They're so pro Second Amendment, right? But yeah, here's JD Vance surrounded by Secret Service behind a bulletproof glass to protect him from his supporters. But it is what it is. We live in a violent society, man. Trump almost got taken out 2 months ago, damn near, right? So, this is the reality. Yeah, and what he's saying, look, I agree that eliminating guns is not the answer. I'm not for that shit. Okay, I don't think that taking guns away is the answer. It's not. But I do believe that we should have some common sense gun control laws. A father shouldn't be giving his 14-year-old son a fucking AK for his birthday. And I hope that motherfucker rots in prison for the rest of his fucking life. Okay? That's out of control gun. That's bullshit. But you got to stop it at the root. And the issue is, I read a little bit more about what happened with this young man, right? And don't get me wrong, he's still a piece of shit, right? But I'm more pissed off at the father than the boy. They abused that kid, man. They treated that boy like an animal, wearing the same fucking clothes and underwear for several days straight, not bathing, not providing shelter, locking the kids out of the house because you don't want to be bothered by it. Nah, you don't do shit like that, bro. But you know what? That's a failure of society. They should have taken them kids away from them motherfuckers years ago. The neighbors should have reported. But then again, the neighbors did call the cops on them a long time ago, warning about this shit. The FBI and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation should have took that threat seriously. Because people like Richard Kuklinski, these monsters, like the Iceman, Richard Kuklinski, a lot of times they're not born, they're created in the womb or from the start by monstrous, sadistic, fucking psychopathic fucking parents in a fucked up environment. And then they're unleashed on society. We got to deal with the fallout. So shit like that needs to start from the womb. That's why as a community, we got to become more together, man. We got to start interacting with each other again. Stop living in these invisible cocoons behind these walls and just shutting everything up. Well, I don't got nothing to do with that. They ain't my business. Oh, well, that's what happened. And then the shit happens and the powder keg explodes. Dude, wonder, oh, well, how did that happen? Yeah, well, I mean, what? Because you got on blinders. You rather, live in your own world on Discord or Lipstick Alley, X, Facebook. We live in a false reality, man. And it's sad, but yeah, we do need more security in our schools. Real security. It's fucked up, man, but we live in a fucking different society. We're in a totally different society. Now, I don't believe that we should live in a garrison state where we become basically occupied by the military. You know what I'm saying? And authorities. I don't believe we should be in a garrison state, but it's different, man. It's not the same society we lived in when we were kids, man. It's not the 80s and 90s anymore. And I've warned about this on my channel before. I said, we're going to start seeing more violence. I said this like 2010, 2011 on videos when I first started doing this shit. I said, we're going to start seeing even more shootings in schools. And I'm not trying to put ideas out there. School buses, city buses, transportation buses. Why? Because they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable. And it's getting to a point where we might have to have armed guards on these fucking buses. I mean, we have more airplanes, but we live in a fucked up state, man. We live in a very violent society. And that's the reality. And look, like I said, I don't like JD Vance, but I don't like misquoting people. I don't like doing that. I'm not going to misquote people to get clicks, likes, and views, and to try to sway people to vote for a candidate I, want to win by misleading you. I see CNN and MSNBC doing that shit. Don't get me wrong, Fox News does that shit too with the left. Fuck them too. But Roger's right. I don't like that bullshit, man. And that's why I'm always been very critical of the media, whether it's the political media or the love media. I don't like that shit, man. I don't like the way the media uses their power to hurt people. And I don't like when the media misquotes people to push some covert agenda. But anyway, that's all I got to say in this one, man. You guys.